What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. Today, we will be recapping the NBA Finals as the Denver Nuggets were able to defeat the Miami Heat in only 5 games. We're then going to do our top 10 NFL wide receivers as a consensus, and then we'll wrap things up with a fan mailbag, because we're trying to get you guys all involved more in the show. So we're happy to do that. But before we get into all of that, Matt, Theo, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Nothing has happened to me today, and I have no big plans going forward. So just a normal day.
Theo.
Spent yesterday watching a bunch of Kayvon Thibodeau film for my All-22, which should come out here very shortly. I was pleasantly surprised by what I saw from Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence and Azeez Ojulari, to be completely honest. So I guess instead of how I'm doing, it's a little bonus take at the beginning of the show. But I'm very high on that Giants front four next season. And I think because they brought Leonard Williams back, they thought they might cut him, but they brought him back. But you put him at 3 tech, Dexter Lawrence at the nose, and then Kayvon and Azeez Ojulari at edge. I like what that is. I like what that is a lot. I think that's something that can collapse the pocket and also, win around the edge. I really started to see the vision on specifically that position group on that team yesterday.
Interesting. It's funny because for my video this week, I actually had to consult a Giants fan. So there's going to be a snippet of like an interview of me interviewing a Giants fan, because and he makes a pretty interesting. He has a pretty interesting take about how good they could be this year. So
okay, is this a video about the Giants, or is it about something else?
It's about something else, and the Giants happen to be the most prevalent team in this discussion.
Okay, Giants fans will be eating on Stay Hot.
They will be.
We've prepared a 5-course meal just for Giants fans. I feel like we don't talk about the Giants a lot, like positively.
We don't.
So I'm glad that
we don't.
I'm glad that we're able to do that.
Matt, how are you hanging in there?
I'm okay. I'm sorry that I don't have a cool anecdote to share with you guys, but I'm just a regular day. I think the most notable thing is I've just been sleepy, but outside of that,
poor sleepy.
I don't have a ton going on. I've been just doing my work. I've been trying to watch Jamison Williams recently because I'm interested in him, because Ohio State guy, and he was a really high draft pick. But trying to watch Jamison Williams film really sucks because he played 100 snaps, even though he was there for the last 6 or 7 weeks or whatever. And they're all dispersed through an hour-long game, and you just got to sit there. And then there's receivers with similar dimensions who wear one number. It's Reynolds is 8, and then Williams is 9, and they use this big blocky letter, so it just barely looks like.
You gotta note the accessories. This is an accessories moment.
And then you never see Williams, so you don't know his accessories until it's oh, dude, it's such a disaster. So
yeah,
that's what I've been doing, but. Outside of that, I don't have too much.
All right. Well, we got to watch the NBA Finals recently. If anyone was on the AMP Live with us, you were there to watch us witness the downfall of the Miami Heat. But really not. They should still be proud of the season that they had, the playoff run that they were able to put together. But the Denver Nuggets, man, winning in 5, Jokic, the MVP. Jokic, the most nonchalant Finals MVP I've ever seen in my life, man. What?
It's just what he's like.
I'm not as moved by that as other people. I think that's fine. It's a little funny.
It's just what he's like. It's people are is this good? Is this bad? It's I think it just is.
I don't know. I think it's funny.
He's a Serbian that wants to be in Serbia. Sure.
Yeah.
He probably has family there.
Like,
that's probably where his kid is being raised. It's he probably does just want to go home. If I was playing football, if I was playing football in Serbia, I would be down to come back to America, I don't know.
Right.
I think that's just what he's like. He likes his horses. He likes being on the countryside and doing what he does. and basketball is just part of that, which is fine.
It's just unique that, there's all this talk about like Mamba mentality. You got that dog in you. And Jokic is just like, he's just chill. He's just like ready to go home. But like you think about all these other finals champions, they're all like losing their head. They're going crazy. I mean, well, Aaron Gordon was wearing his shorts still like a day after.
I think social media and being on social media kind of warps how you act. It certainly does, I think, for me when I'm in like the public stage so much. I've definitely like, and Jokic is just so offline that like I just don't think he plays to the cameras at all or plays to Twitter. Like Jimmy Butler, genuinely very tough dude and like very locked in dude.
Yes.
But some of what he does in terms of like,
dude,
I don't care is like for social media and to drum up. Like
that's what somebody like giving all the right answers looks like. And that's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, Jimmy obviously was great until he messed up his ankle and was a little bit more passive. And I really believe it was the ankle giving him problems. But like, I feel like sometimes people recognize other stuff as like, oh, they're just saying that because it's the right thing to say. And with Jimmy, it's like people are like, oh, that's just like not touching the Eastern Conference Finals. Okay. All right, sure.
I'll hold the next one.
Right? It's
yeah, Jokic doesn't care in a very different way. And I think it's just a more offline way. Like he grew up on I don't know where he grew up, but it seems like he owns a ranch and just has horses and isn't really interested in all the pageantry of playing in the NBA. Whereas I think Butler, he says he doesn't care about all the pageantry of the NBA. And I think he does. And I think there's a very clear difference. And it's okay. You play in the NBA. The NBA is about pageantry. I don't want a bunch of Jokic's running around. I don't want a bunch of Jimmy Butlers running around. And I think it's like there is no personality archetype that's like legit and one is fraudulent. Like
that's a very good point. Yes, the idea that there's like one way these players, it's like for the most part, it's fine. If you want to be Kawhi, okay. If you want to be LeBron, that's fine too. There's multiple ways to be. It doesn't actually matter pretty much at all.
These are human beings. It's a collective group of humans, and they all have interests, and they all have hobbies, and they all have ways they perceive themselves and want to be perceived. And there's not a right and wrong way to do that. It's like Jokic is corny for this. Jokic is what it's like. It's just Jokic. This is just what he's like, and just accept that. So I don't know. I try not to get into all of it, but I think that's like just objectively the correct take. But of course, it gets a lot of likes if Jokic is at the podium and says, "I want to go home on Thursday," and then you're like, "This is
you can go home Friday.
The city has given you so much." When like literally the next thing that is said is like, "You can go home on Friday," and then he said, "Okay." He'll do it, man. He just wants to go back to Serbia, and that's okay. And yeah, as far as the Nuggets and the Heat go, obviously Lillard can now go to the Heat. Speaking of personalities that get people a little bit riled up, Damian Lillard can now go to the Heat since they didn't win the finals, as he laid out in an interview. Do you think the Heat will? How different do you think this Heat team will look next year?
Hopefully different. Hopefully they end up making the move, but I'm not 100% sure. I think the play is Beal. They don't have the assets for Dame. They don't have it. I mean, Hero, Jovic, and 3 first and 3 pick swaps probably is just not enough to get it done for Dame with how good he is. Unless Dame was like, I'm not going anywhere else, no matter what. Send me to the Heat. Maybe then it gets done, but I think otherwise, if there's even a few places he's willing to go, other offers are going to beat that out, I would guess. Beal, on the other hand, is on a little bit bigger of a contract. He's not quite the level that Dame is, and he's got a little bit of injury proneness to him, which I guess Dame does too. But I think Beal is just within the Heat's price range, and their big problem is there's been a lot of star players who are available, but they keep getting outbid because they don't have like a ton of great young assets they can trade. I mean, hypothetically, Bam, but you're not doing a trade like this to get rid of Bam. You want to add on to the team, right? So I think Beal is within reason and would be a great addition. So That's the one I'd have circled if I'm Miami. Of every trade possibility, like big time star, like we're going to trade a bunch of picks for a guy that has been available to the Heat in the last 2 or 3 years, Beal is the most likely one, I think. But there's a very good chance he goes to the Celtics too.
Do you worry about them still being too small if they get Beal?
No.
No?
I think those are two unrelated things. In fact, I actually think that Miami's bigger problem was they couldn't score.
Right. The shooting was pretty
once Jimmy couldn't do his thing, it's like there was just too much. Like Strus and Vincent and Martin are cool, but you got to have somebody a little bit more reliable in those situations. Jimmy was playing,
and it's why they can't go after Zion. Like if Zion's going to be available, like all these rumors are saying, like that's not really helping your problem, even though
that's a whole nother discussion about the Zion trading. That's a very interesting one right now.
Do you have any thoughts on it now that the Hornets are that'd be so funny if you've been like a number one Zion hater over these past couple of years. You're not a hater. You're not a hater.
Zion is from South Carolina and he's an awesome physical post player. He doesn't play. You're right. And I think it's just like people just assume it's going to be okay. It really does. Like it really could just always be this bad, man. I mean, he's played less than 30 games a season so far. He's got one sort of full season under his belt. 60 games, I think, is starting to get in the full season range. I don't know. I like people ask me on Twitter, it's like, would you trade the number 2 overall pick for Zion? No way. No way would I do that. And here's the thing. I feel like almost all the time when a trade gets done in the NBA, it's not because two teams have the same goal and they just disagree on how much each asset is worth that much, right? It's that two teams have different goals. So like if the Wizards traded Beal for first round draft picks, it wouldn't be because the Heat think that their first round draft picks are worth less than Beal and the Wizards think the opposite. It's because the Wizards want to rebuild and the Heat are in win now mode. If the Pelicans, who are a young team that wants to be good, trades away a number 1 overall pick who's 22 years old for the second overall pick, let's say Scoot Henderson, that would just be because they think Scoot is better. They'd rather have Scoot, and the Hornets would rather have Zion. And I think trades like that just don't happen that much. And if the Pelicans are saying, hey, Zion Williamson, this guy who has been awesome every single second he has been on the floor, been great every single time he's been on the floor, is somebody we'd like to trade away 1 for 1 for Scoot, I'm going to believe him. Like I think that speaks very, very badly of Zion's health.
Yeah.
So I just wouldn't. I think there's a price where I'd take the risk on him for sure. And there's definitely a world where he gets like Joel Embiid level healthy, where it's always a problem, but it's not like so. It's not like where he's just like
he can still win MVP. Right.
Yeah. But I'm just not going to be the one to take the risk on that. I'm just not going to. I think he's a really big player who jumps 40 inches and has a history of lower body injuries. And I think that's just a combo that's going to be really hard to stay healthy with.
And like discipline too. Like to be honest with Zion, it's like, man, with everything that has happened to Zion, like off the court, like, are you like mentally, dude, are you like locked in to doing this? I don't know. Maybe that's a completely unfair thing to say, but he's just been in so much drama recently and keeping his weight up and getting out of shape and everything. It's like, I don't know. It just has gone so poorly off, like so poorly off the court.
I mean, so many, and if he goes to the Hornets, and it's like, oh, classic Hornets, you know? And yeah. I just, with the injury stuff, I also don't want him to end up in Charlotte because we're not exactly a 4-leaf clover, man. Like, I promise you, if he gets traded to the Charlotte Hornets, it's the worst possible outcome as far as the injury luck goes. So I hope he gets healthy. He really is such an awesome player. And there's nobody else like him in the NBA right now, but I wouldn't trade for him. Although I do think there's probably a price I'd think about it.
Yeah. You wouldn't trade the number 2 overall pick for him, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would just, obviously, if someone was offering like some, Yeah.
If the Pelicans were willing to do it for like stupidly low, there's a point where I would get there. I'm just saying that I'm not even going to entertain it because I think I'm really low on his injury health, and I don't think the Pelicans should make a trade for if it just like doesn't make any sense like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'd just be out.
Speaking of drama, Bills missing the playoffs. I don't know what the hell is going on with Stefon Diggs, but just
oh my god, yeah.
I don't know what the hell happened.
There's a lot
yesterday.
When you say you don't know,
No.
Do you have some idea, or is it just like he's just mad?
It sounds like something happened between him and Allen, like some personal beef or disagreement. Like I don't think it had to do with contract.
Allen said they're like working through something non-football related. So
I think it may have had to do with like their like a girl. I think that's crazy, but like I kind of think that's what happened. You know,
I mean, what's that Vikings video? The Vikings video.
I'm a nice guy. They just don't really know me.
I'm not going to assume that Diggs is in the wrong yet. Maybe he's right. Even though he's the one holding out and upset, maybe it's validly so.
There's a lot of guys holding out of camp right now.
Yeah, well, he came back today. Here's the thing. Yesterday, the sky was falling. He came back today like everything was normal. But yesterday, the sky was falling, and Sean McDermott said he's very concerned. And people are freaking out. I don't know. I think something crazy happened. Like, I think if it gets out, people are going to be like, oh my God, like this league. I don't think it was just a contract thing. And I have no idea what it could be. I just think it was crazy. And I think it was so crazy that like, if it was a holdout, I don't think Stefon Diggs would be back at work today. I think they were like, this can't get out. And if you're going to make a big deal about it, like eventually, like, let's just put this under the bridge and like not deal with it. And that's why he was back today. Because if he was pissed about the contract, that happens 10 times in off season, like across the league. Is like a big star holds out through mandatory minicamp. Like every division has some star that is like maybe a little bit unhappy. It is not a rare occurrence, but this seemed a little bit more chaotic. I don't know. I guess he came back, so I guess everything is about the same as it was 2 days ago. But I just look at this Bills team and I'm like, you guys are not buttoned up. They're getting closer to the.
My God. I was thinking like,
they have bad juju going into the year.
This is why. Oh, so you see.
Well, last time we talked, we talked if I was going to go through with it, and I don't know.
You have to call it.
I have to call it eventually.
Have you called it yet?
I have not called it yet, but it's getting everything. I have not heard any good news about the Bills. They haven't done one thing where I'm like, this is awesome. Except for drafting Osiris Torrance. I like Osiris Torrance, I guess. But he's a guard.
Kincaid's a good player.
He's a good player.
He's a rookie tight end. Like, he's not going to move the needle for me. Plus,
Torrance is a guard. How often do guards pan out right away?
That's what I'm saying. It's like, is Osiris Torrance like a needle mover? Which I guess he doesn't need to be because they were in the playoffs last year and all that. Like, as long as he's a needle, stay the same. But I don't know.
Man. I thought you were going to make the great transition of like, well, Diggs missed yesterday of camp, but we're going to do receiver rankings or something.
He just wanted to bring up his Bills.
He just wanted to bring up the Bills.
I just wanted to see like it's a needle moving in one direction, and listeners of the podcast will in real time, before I make the take, be able to have access to my thought process.
It better be that you're saying they're missing it. You're saying
it's
they're
looking like it.
I'll make the call for you.
All right, you're saying they're missing. This is like Succession.
You are not doing this to be like, actually, I think they'll sneak into the wild card. There's no doing that.
Well, they might. I think the Jets are better. That's for sure. I think the Jets. I'm going to have the Jets winning this division.
Rodgers, but I'll accept the assumed Wilson and Sauce love. We should talk about, though, speaking of Wilson, who is a receiver, and Diggs, who is a receiver, top 10. receivers. We did our
We do have a
consensus
top 10.
rankings. Everybody did a 1 through
did.
10 list, including producer Daniel. And now we have our top 10 list of the best receivers in the NFL. This is a really tough one because it felt like with quarterbacks, which we did a little while ago, it's like there's a pretty solid like 10, 11 guys, and then it's a drop off. Not with receiver, man. I think there's a solid like 7, and then after that it gets real muddy. And there's like 15 dudes who it's like, this is a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, it's really tough. But we'll start down at the bottom, just like we did last time with the quarterbacks. If you didn't see the quarterback episode, make sure you check that out. We did. I'll mention the honorable mention ended up being Terry McLaurin. So for the sake of understanding how we did this, you know, some of us included Terry McLaurin, some of us didn't include Terry McLaurin. I included Terry McLaurin. Theo, you included Terry McLaurin. Our producer included Terry McLaurin. So, Matt, you're the reason Terry McLaurin isn't in the top 10 here. What do you think is, and as an Ohio State fan too, what do you think is the one thing that kept him off your list?
Oh, see, that's kind of like a
what?
Okay, I thought there were 10 guys who were better.
Okay.
Okay, well then who'd you have on your list? And then I'm going to ask you why'd you leave 11 off? I don't think there's any. I think it's
the only guy I left
there were
off.
A few guys.
The only guy that I left off that you had on was Waddle.
Yeah, dude, Waddle's special, man. He's different.
I think pretty much every receiver on this list is a more consistent catcher of the football. I'll say that.
That's probably true.
I guess.
But
Waddle's kind of a
McLaurin,
body catcher, but so is Tyreek.
Yeah, McLaurin got
Terry McLaurin
votes.
Terry McLaurin's better at it too. I don't know. Like,
I had McLaurin on my list. He was an honorable mention. He also got votes. It seemed like it was between him and, like, at the bottom of these things, CD, who is 10th, because everybody but Matt had McLaurin on their list, but everybody but me, and I guess Daniel also didn't have CD on his list, but Matt had CD and BLAIDEN had CD up at 8. And McLaurin never got higher than 9th. So this is how it works. CD got more votes, but it was very, very close between him and McLaurin. I prefer McLaurin a little bit. I just think like the production has been pretty similar, but McLaurin has just been through a rotating cast of characters at quarterback that is not nearly as good as Dak Prescott. His ball tracking ability is crazy. He's got legitimate burner speed down the field. He plays outside more than CD does, and he's been one of the best in the league in contested catch situations, even though he jumps up and catches them all underhand. To me, I actually am willing to stand on a soapbox and say CD over McLaurin is incorrect. I think that McLaurin is faster. I think that he has better hands. CD has had some issues with drops as well over the course of his career. But CD does have great body control. He is someone who, they line him up at running back. He is pretty special with the ball in his hands. A very, very dynamic player. I just think like if you gave Terry McLaurin a guy like Dak Prescott and a guy like CD, the rotating cast of characters that Washington has had, I think McLaurin has a little bit more going for him overall.
I don't know. I think the criticism I don't understand like your criticism of CD being they line him up in too many places. Like to me, that's just like, oh,
well, he's
just
more
versatile.
of a slot guy. It's not like they line him up in too many places. It's that they line him up in the slot more than out wide. And I just like the wide receivers out wide a little bit more. I don't know why. Maybe that's completely asinine. Maybe there's a study like yards are yards. It doesn't matter. I just think it's a little bit harder when you don't have that two-way go. You've got the sideline to deal with. Usually number one corners are on the outside instead of out in the slot. usually you're attacking more down the field and you're not able to settle in those underneath zones. Like, I just don't really think slot receivers, like guys aren't drafted in the top 10 to be a slot receiver most of the time. Like usually you draft guys that high and you put them outside. And maybe the league is changing and I should change with it, because you do see some of the top guys in the league eat from the slot right now. And you do see guys more often, top guys go in there. But just kind of a preference thing. If there's a guy that I think is, if it comes down to it, I want someone that I trust more out wide. And maybe there's no reason CD couldn't be out wide, but he's pretty skinny. So I don't know if you would want him. Usually bigger guys are out wide and smaller guys are in the slot.
Devontae Smith?
Not as skinny as CD, man. CD's really, really slight.
Bro,
CD's like really skinny.
Bro, there's no way.
Oh, Devontae Smith. I thought you meant Adams.
Yes. No. Devontae Smith. He lines up outside. He's tiny.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know. CD to me is just so smooth. He's so smooth.
I actually do disagree. I think CeeDee Lamb is better. I think he's just a much cleaner route runner. I think he's a lot smoother. I think he gets the ball more for a reason. And McLaurin's awesome, and I agree with the quarterback stuff, but I don't want to fall into that trap too much of just comparing the numbers and saying, well, they're pretty close and this guy's got the worst QB. I just think the things that McLaurin is better at are maybe a little bit easier to quantify, like contested catches and being really fast. But to be completely honest with you, I think if you're a top 10 receiver, you're not going to see 115 targets in a season. You're going to see a lot more than that. And I think a lot of that has to come down to like being like he's such an awesome deep threat. He is. He'd be like 11 or 12 for me, but I think CD is just more of like a true alpha number one, who you do move around, who you do try to get into the slot, who does get himself open a little bit more, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, CD is number 10, and McLaurin just snuck in at number 11. I would pick McLaurin, but you guys would pick CD and are a little bit higher on CD than I am even on McLaurin. So he's at 10. I disagree, and I hate your guts forever for this, and I'll never forget it. But I guess we can move on.
Right now, I'm about to hang up whatever side in.
So
I'm done.
True.
Fuck you guys.
Stay Hot breaks up live on the air.
Ranking McLaurin over. But
I've been negative about Ohio State receivers 2 podcasts in a row.
This is crazy.
What have I become?
We're gonna have to change that.
Did Garrett Wilson make this list, by the way?
He did. He did.
He did. We'll get to him. So
Speaking of guys who only got 115 targets, but this is different.
Well, moving on to number 9, we just talked about the honorable mention, which I guess 11 and 10. Number 9 is Jalen Waddle, who that was the one guy I didn't have on the list, but Theo, Matt, you guys did, and our producer Daniel did as well. But he's a Dolphins fan, so he's biased.
Dude, Waddle is he's a little tough to judge. He also maybe doesn't have the workload of like a top 10 guy, but he also has Tyreek Hill on his team. So that's a little bit, it's like kind of not fair. Maybe the same thing should be said about Devontae Smith.
Right.
I just think he's like a total game breaker with the speed, man. And I think he's really smooth as well. I think dealing with that, like McLaurin's fast, and I know this is going to sound like me just going against exactly what I said. Although I did have Lamb over Waddle on my ranking, so I'm not totally crazy.
No, you're not.
But I don't know. I just think Waddle is a total game breaker and was really efficient and putting up the numbers he did with Tyreek on the team as well, and not getting like a ridiculous number of targets. Like he's one of the more efficient receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, and last year too, he had over 1,000 yards in his rookie season, and he wasn't being used in the way that he should have been used last year. Before McDaniel came, his average depth of target was 7 yards for Jalen Waddle. He was like a possession guy last year, and he still was an effective receiver. And then McDaniel comes, they opened it up a little bit more, And man, yeah, it's him and Tyreek. And I have Tyreek Hill absurdly high, and I always have. Maybe not absurdly high. I just think that he's the best in the league. And I don't think that's new information for anybody listening to the podcast. And Jalen Waddle brings all the same things. Like his speed, as fast as McLaurin is, like you're saying, and as fast as a lot of the guys on this list and in this league are, like Waddle is a tier up from that. Like Waddle, right. His acceleration and his burst is like truly, truly, truly special. And
it's like number two to one guy.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty close. So, and he's also someone who, you know, yeah, his hands, maybe his catch technique can be a little bit funky sometimes. But I just think the good so massively outweighs the bad. And I think like when he catches it in stride, like is just so difficult to deal with. And it's something like, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's a great receiver. You know, there are other guys who are not on this list, a DK Metcalf, a Tyler Lockett, you know, there's you could go on and on. But I think the key in this game is to create explosive plays. Like I would rather get down the field in one throw than 10 throws, because you're just more likely to make a mistake if you're constantly just going underneath. So to have a guy like Waddle who can just get you down the field super quickly, I just think that that's more of a boon for an offense than a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I agree with Mike McDaniels and their philosophy of just like, let's build this thing out fast and like, let's throw it over the middle. Let's catch things on the move. And I mean, they were able to completely turn Tua's career around. They were able to turn the fortunes of that franchise around. They were able to make the playoffs. And I think that they're going to have a top offense again, because I think that's a pretty smart bet, and they've got the guys to do it.
Yeah. I don't hate Waddle. Ultimately, it is a really tough, like the 8 through 10 section of this list is really brutal. You have guys like Waddle and Devontae Smith and Garrett. What
you had Devontae Smith on your list? That's the guy you had. Who'd you have?
No, he didn't.
I had Terry
he did
and
not have
CD.
Smith on his list.
Each of you had Terry or CD. And
maybe I'm being too harsh on Terry. His play style and targets, he could be on the top 10. He just barely missed mine.
Right.
But yeah, I just think Waddle is just on another level, so he sneaks onto my list.
Yeah, if Waddle was as good at the wonky catch technique as Terry was, he'd be on the list. But he's not as good at it. I just think he's another level of fast. The speed,
I think drops get overrated.
Ridiculous.
Is kind of my thing.
Yeah, drops are incredibly overrated. It's a big deal. It's annoying, and they're so visible when they happen is what makes people. It's like you can really you can't see somebody as well like not getting open because they run a poor route or just being a little bit too slow or that type of stuff. But you can really see somebody drop the ball. I mean, that's the classic bad play. It's like,
yeah, but for a receiver to like almost never drop passes, it's a little bit more special because it's like the reliability that lies there. And Theo, like you mentioned, the quarterback play that Terry deals with, for him to catch as many passes as he does is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Terry McLaurin's hands and his ability to track a football is very incredible. But again, I would take the speed of Waddle over. I just think drops, because what's really bad for drops? Waddle had 9. Like that's terrible. But McLaurin, who is really good, might have 3, you know? So it's like over the course of a season, at least when it comes to like PFF charting, and maybe the actual numbers are different because there are times where I definitely disagree with PFF's charting, which is what I'm looking at right now. But overall, it's usually just like a small handful of plays that is the difference between something that's really good and very bad. And people get really focused on that. But in reality, you've got to remember that you're maybe talking about an instance that only happens once every other game or every 3 games, and stuff like catches and breaking a tackle that maybe McLaurin wouldn't have broken, or burning an angle that, you know, CD wouldn't have, because CD's not on my list, like running around someone that CD wouldn't have run around. It happens a lot with Waddle, and, you know, CD's dropped a fair share of passes too. So I definitely think Waddle's better than, I would take Waddle over CD for sure. But I don't know. I have him at, what did I put Waddle?
You put him at
Waddle
9.
I put him at 9. He's here at 9.
He's here at 9. So you win. You
I win.
You're the winner.
Me and Matt placed him correctly at 9.
Well, that brings us to number 8. And Matt, here's your opportunity to redeem yourself with Ohio State receivers. We have Garrett Wilson. And I think this might be where we face some criticism in the comments.
Yeah, we've got to defend this one well, because people are going to be like, oh, the hype is too much. He didn't even do anything last year.
I actually think he's becoming overhyped now because we keep saying good things about him.
Sorry,
look, dude,
nope.
There's you can count on one hand the number of receivers who have a skill set like he does. Right. Mm-hmm. I stand by him going at 10 was ridiculous the day it happened. Him not being wide receiver 1 was ridiculous the day it happened. He is one of the best after the catch players in the entire NFL. His shiftiness and his ability to make people miss is ridiculous. He is a little bit wonky, some people say, but he's a good route runner. He's a great route runner, man. Because of that shiftiness, it's just hard to stay with him. And on top of that, he can go up and get the ball with anybody else, man. Number of guys who can do that, just not that high. And I know the numbers from his rookie season are really great, but maybe they don't seem like top 10 to you. But this is the time, and I guess maybe I'm going against what I said about Terry again. This is the time where it's like, dude, he had Zach Wilson throwing the ball for half the season where it's like they'd complete 10 passes in an entire game. And he still won. He still won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He is totally ridiculous. Him going from that to Rodgers, I guarantee you, if he stays healthy, 1,400 yards is a guarantee, it feels like. So,
yeah, I mean, well, how are you selling him leading the league if 1,400 yards is a guarantee?
Because, we're going back to what
we're going back to the definition of selling.
Okay,
we'll get it. I think I agree. Like Garrett Wilson to me, like pops on film. Like he is exactly the type of style that I appreciate because it's just interesting to watch. Like everything he does is a little bit unconventional. It's a little bit different than the way that other guys do it. I think everything he does is super severe. Everything he does is like spectacular, really, like just casual stuff. And even you see it like in the mini camp videos, and maybe this is where people are really going to get mad and say like he's overhyped, like you're freaking out over mini camp videos, but just like crazy. You can watch him casually do anything and it just looks so effortless, and it is a catch behind him with one hand, and it's a release off the line of scrimmage, it's beating press, it's just like everything is very violent, everything. He looks like an insect out there. That's always what comes to my mind when I watch him. He's just so shifty and just sneaking around. What were you going to say, Matt?
We're starting to sound like the scouts from Moneyball, I'm afraid.
We are. Well, statistically...
just a little... I mean, I'm on board. I'll stand on the table for Garrett Wilson. And so far, so good. Like, we've been right, but like, man...
Here's the thing about baseball and football, though. Like the scouts from Moneyball would do better in a football environment than a baseball environment, just because with baseball, the conditions are so often similar or the same, and the sample size is so big that analytics in baseball really are pretty good. Whereas analytics in football, you know, the same situation only happened. Like how many drives are there per game? Like 10, and then there's 17 games in a season, so it's 170 possessions to go score. And then you think about like how many innings there are over the course of a baseball season. Like if the sample size is that big, when you can't really trust it in the NFL. So I think you do kind of got to look at stuff like physicality and just how they look and what the film says. And that's why I really don't think like analytics in football will ever, I think it's impossible just on the nature of the sport, will ever get to the level that they are at or the importance that they're at in baseball or basketball or basically any other sport, because it's just such a chaotic with so many moving parts.
You can try to find trends, but you could never fully rely on just like analytics.
I don't disagree, but I stand by it.
We are sounding like the studs, but he just looks different.
He does by Wilson.
Oh yeah.
I just thought it was funny. I understand if you think if you think we're too early on this and it's like, oh man, you're really going to say that Wilson's already better than like, I don't know, like, I guess for me, McLaurin or like a T Higgins or a Metcalf or whatever. But I really think so, man. I really think he's going to be so special.
I mean, okay, we put him, like, Matt, you and I put him at 10. It's like, I feel like that was me being reserved and being like, you know what? I think he's top 10, but I'm not going to be super aggressive about it and try and put him up there with like Jamar and AJ Brown. I'll let him prove it first this season, but I have no problem just
that'd
like
be too much.
Right. That'd be doing too much.
Brown, yeah.
But to say that he is a top 10 guy up there with Terry and CD and, you know, maybe a little bit better than Higgins right now, I don't think is ridiculous because he can do a little bit more.
Look, Aaron Rodgers said, and again, we're going to the mini camps, but he's like, 17 is crazy special. I played with another 17 that got in and out of breaks in a similar way. And obviously that's Davante Adams. And I agree. You know, Davante Adams who's more likely to be the best wide receiver in the league? It's like Davante Adams got there and he was a second round pick and he was terrible in 2015. If Davante Adams was able to get there, why can't Garrett Wilson? Like, Garrett Wilson has everything. Like, he is just as good of a route runner. He does such a good job. I think just like, again, cutting very severely is always the words I use. Like, he dips a little bit lower than other guys. He can sell one direction a little bit farther than other guys can take it before he snaps around. My really only concern with Garrett Wilson is like he will tear his ACL. Like, he's at a high risk of doing that because some of the stuff he does just looks like so stressful on your knees, or I'm like, and that be after the catch or running routes. It's like he is just trying some shit where other guys would just learn that, like, okay, my journey is over, I'm going down, and he'll try to like Euro step and set him up and then spin, and it's like he's always this close to the best highlight. Like, I think like an Odell level. Like, no,
he does move like Odell.
Yeah, he's someone who has that in him of just like making the most incredible catch you've ever seen in your life, because he's not afraid to put his body on the line to try it. But sometimes I'm like, dude, chill, because like you could get hurt, like stretching your body. He's got a
little bit of everyone in him. I don't know.
And maybe
it's like if we could argue he's a top 10 route runner right now, top 10 contested catch artist right now, top 10 after the catch maybe right now, then like he's top 10. Like, I just don't think you can argue that.
Yeah. I think sometimes he can learn to just get upfield. I think that's one thing that he could. Like, sometimes doing too much is legitimately a negative. Like, sometimes he tries to juke someone out where it's like, if you just like ran in a straight line right now, you'd probably pick up more yards. There's some stuff like that to him where maybe he's expanding or expending a little bit too much energy when like it's not worth it. And I think that can be a valid concern with him, where he's like just almost trying to do a little bit too much, and he loses coordination or he falls down or something like that. Judy used to, and still kind of does, get into that issue a lot, where he'll like fall down because he's like just expending himself too hard running routes instead of like keeping it simple. And that's kind of the flavor difference between a guy like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, because Chris Olave was also super good with bad quarterback play last year. And there's a lot of people who I respect who have Chris Olave above Garrett Wilson, and they have him because of the smoothness of Chris Olave's game and how there's like really no wasted time. And it's just, and I wouldn't describe Garrett Wilson as like super smooth. I would describe him more as like sudden. But I have a slight preference for like the spectacularness of Garrett Wilson, because I think that opens up some plays that truly are only him. And now that he's playing with Rodgers in a receiving room that doesn't have anyone near his caliber, in an offense that got Davante Adams all that production, and I think he's going to step into that Davante role. I think it would take an injury to make this not consensus next year, because it's pretty close to consensus right now, and it's going to get way better.
All right. Well, that's number 8, Garrett Wilson. Number 7, It's the front receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's Jamar Chase. I don't know if there's much we can say about Chase that hasn't been said already. If you talk about spectacular, I mean, he makes pretty much every play in the book. He has 4.3 speed. He can run away from the defense. He terrorized the Ravens. He terrorizes pretty much everyone. He monstered the catch point despite only being like 6 feet tall. I just like as far as guys,
he's tier one receiver, but he kind of had a down year last year.
Yeah, and he was hurt last year too. Is the other thing about him? Mm-hmm. He played 12 games as opposed to 17 the year before. I had him a little bit higher than you guys did. I get that, like, we're talking about a tier one of guys here, like spoiler, Diggs, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Tyreek Jeffrey. Like, they're all going to be here. And Jamar Chase is in that tier. And he maybe just didn't have quite the spectacular year that others did. But, man, still someone who had 87 yards a game. He actually, this is really interesting. His role kind of changed last year. I think that he was getting more of that attention from single high safeties, which allowed T. Higgins to become the primary deep threat. Mm-hmm. And he was working more underneath, it seemed like this year. It wasn't quite so many go balls. Like, it seems like every single week last year, Jamar Chase was taking one or multiple plays deep down the sideline to the house. This year it was a little bit different than that. His yards per target went down, but he did pick up more first downs this year than last year, even though he played 5 less games. So he was a little bit more of an underneath type of threat. I think that he can do both. I think that it's really encouraging that they took that kind of deep threat away from him and he was still super productive. He is, again, one of the, maybe we've talked a lot about yards after catch, and I think it's an underrated guy, or an underrated thing, and he just cannot get tackled with the first dude. Like, they bounce off of him every single time. And I just remember him mossing everybody versus the Chiefs, and
he's a very strong, stocky receiver. Like, he is. He's just built. He's just a strong guy, and he's really fast. So you had him
stylistically. I fuck with that a lot. I love Jamar Chase's style. I just, more than the technicians and the route runners. Like, I enjoy watching guys like AJ Brown and Jamar Chase just break tackles and dunk on everybody. That's, like, stylistically my thing. So I had them super high, but it doesn't really, like, we're getting into a certain tier where it's like,
right,
who really cares? I don't know if you guys have any takes on why you ranked him at the bottom of this tier, like play style wise, or if it was just like, we'll just rank these guys in this tier from the seasons they had last year.
I just didn't think that he was better than some of the other guys above him.
Yeah.
And I'm not dinging anybody for stylistically being uncool. I poo-poo that.
I don't think they're uncool. It's just like, if I was building it, I just want a guy like this.
Guys who get cool highlights. Like, I don't think that's crazy, but I this is the mindset that has poisoned people's brains into thinking that Gronk is better than Cincinnati legend Travis Kelce, unfortunately. So I have to go against it. But I just think Chase is like, okay, great contested catch guy. And you know what? I was going to do these rankings, and I was like, I'm going to have Chase really high. And I do. I mean, 7's really high, but I don't think he brought down a lot this year. I feel like he kind of struggled with that a little bit more. I remember after week 1, I'm like, this is the best receiver in the NFL, because I was just being ridiculous or whatever. But I think he kind of struggled this year, unless I was reading the wrong thing or whatever. But yeah, he just didn't. And I know he's banged up, so it's like a little bit of a down year. But I mean, and maybe I should have done the same thing with Kupp then if he was banged up or whatever. But I don't know. I just had him a little bit lower. I think you got to bring in a few more of the contested catches.
That's fair.
I don't know.
But I'm a big Chase guy. I loved Chase, man. I'm a huge Chase guy, I feel like, but
he's a tier 1 dude. I think, like, it is interesting if you look at PFF and his contested catch numbers. They're not quite as high as you'd expect either year. Last year, he was 14 for 36 in those situations. Last year, he was 12 for 32. So it's actually about the same both years. And both aren't quite the 50, like the 50% that you're looking for. But
also
he gets so many opportunities to catch those because Burrow just fuck it. Like, I think that's an actual quote from Joe Burrow was, fuck it, Jamar Chase is over there somewhere. So he gets a lot of those opportunities.
And also PFF, as far as tracking contested catches, we already know that suspect because of the, who is it? The Tennessee guy. Was it Jalen Hyatt that we were looking at?
Hyatt didn't have any. Yeah.
They said he didn't have any contested targets. And then Theo was like, that's straight up a lie.
Yeah, he had one down the left sideline versus, I don't remember. But I don't know. He's someone that, like, I don't really care what the numbers say. Like, I know what my eyes said, and like Jamar Chase is scary at the catch point.
Right.
You know, like if I had to throw a jump ball to one guy, like maybe I wouldn't have him above his teammate T. Higgins, but I think he's way better after the catch and perhaps a more versatile route runner than T. Higgins is, who is, again, someone who's in consideration for this list. I just think that
pretty much everyone on this list is, a lot of the guys in this list are also really terrifying at the catch point. So
yeah,
like we're getting up there, and the next guy up here is Stefon Diggs, who we just talked about. McDermott was concerned about him not being at minicamp. But Diggs has always been a guy that I've been a huge fan of. His route running is chef's kiss. It's amazing to watch. But one of the things that gets underrated is his physicality and his ability at the catch point. He can go up and snag it with the best of them. And he's really good after, like, he is physical runner after the catch. He is not afraid to take a hit and try and bounce off somebody and make a big play. He has this whole package that he didn't really get enough credit for up until recently, but even still, I don't think he gets enough credit for it.
Yeah, he's super underrated. He's a lot like Devontae is.
Quick
1,400 yards. 1,500, 1,200, and 1,400 yards since joining Buffalo. Pretty crazy. I don't know. I think like we can kind of run through this tier one because they're all like just good at everything. The only one I might want to stop and talk a bit more about is Kupp.
Do you want to talk about Kupp now? Because we have Devontae before him.
Yes. Okay. So the rest. So it's Devontae is at 5 after Diggs, and then Cooper Kupp is at 4. Kupp is at the bottom of my tier one, even though he is a tier one guy, even though he got the triple crown, just because, and I've said this before, like you do need to scheme up ways for him not to get pressed at the line of scrimmage. And that's literally it. Like after he's free and like running down the field, he is created, like he's a cheat code. He's a hack. Him and Stafford are on a mind meld. They know exactly where they're going to be. Kupp is huge. He catches absolutely everything. He probably has the best hands in the entire league. He's tough to bring down after the catch again. He had the triple crown for a reason. It's just like Diggs got traded and was great both places. It's just like, I think that he is just not quite as situation proof as all the other guys. And maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's just like, well, he's in his situation, so why do you care? But if it was like a fantasy draft and if I didn't have like Stafford and McVay around, like, I don't know if I wouldn't select Kupp over the guy, like over Chase and Brown and Devontae and Hill and all them. And that's it. But he's still so special in a specific role.
I think you have to think of Cooper Kupp the same way you think of Travis Kelce. I think if you think of them in a similar regard, then the situation becomes less.
I do think they're very
important.
similar. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think in that sense, it's like, okay, maybe the situation then doesn't matter as much if you're just like, you just recognize that he just understands, like his spatial awareness is just on another tier. Right.
And maybe I would feel differently. I mean, if there was a bunch of guys like Kelce in the league at tight end, there's the thing about Kelce. Kelce's clearly like the best tight end at this point. Like no one comes close to him in terms of numbers. But when it comes to wide receiver, there's like other elite guys. Like we're living in a bad era for tight ends, it seems like right now, where there's just like not a lot of talent and people always complain about it, especially in the fantasy circles. If there was a bunch of like elite tight ends out there, then maybe we could have more of a conversation about like, oh, Kelsey stylistically, if it was like him and Gronk at the league at the same time, or even him and Kittle a couple years ago, it's like, what do you value? There's just no one like challenging him like that right now. Whereas I feel like at the wide receiver position, like you've got multiple, like Justin Jefferson just came up and had 1,800 yards, and there's Diggs and there's Allen, or not Allen, Adams, and there's Hill. Like, I just don't think that type of those choices exist at the top of the tight end rankings. And it's like, obviously it's just Kelsey, like obviously. And I don't think that they're incomparable,
even
and the way they
as
win is like largely the same, but that's why I think like Kelsey's clearly number one, and like Kupp is a little bit lower than that.
I don't know. I just think like if we were to rank pass catchers, Kelsey would probably be right around the same spot as Kupp. I think they would be like neck and neck. Like we would be putting Kelsey probably in the top 5 of pass catchers. So why not put Kupp in that same vein? I don't know. That would be my.
Well, like, Kelsey also is bigger.
Well, no one's challenging
He's
him.
even bigger, right?
Yeah.
And he can block a little bit more. Like, he is a tight end, right? So it's like he does the tight end things. I don't know. I don't know if it's better or worse or whatever. Kupp is also good. He's probably the oldest player of the tier 1. Maybe Adams at this point. Not that matters too much, but projecting going forward is like, he ever going to reach the heights that he reached after the injury and being a little bit older, and like, who knows with the talent of the offense, but that doesn't really matter 29. So much, does it? I don't know. I don't give a, like, again, if you have Kupp at number 1, I don't care. Like, it had the triple count, but I had him ranked a little bit lower, and I get what you're saying with Kelsey. Kupp does?
Yeah. So when this episode comes out, it'll be Cooper Kupp's birthday.
Podcast comes out.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
So happy birthday, Cooper Kupp.
Happy birthday, Cooper Kupp. Wow, I'm sorry.
And you ranked him low, you asshole. On his birthday.
I just disagree with the whole premise of like, Kupp doesn't look cool. He can't be ranked that highly.
It's not that he doesn't look cool. It's that like you need to scheme him so he doesn't get pressed at the line.
What is scheming him so he doesn't get pressed? Like putting him in the slot?
Like put him in stacks, put him in slots, put him in motion. Like just make sure that he is not pressed somehow. Like they would line him up as a Y. Like they do everything in their power.
I just disagree. I just disagree that it's like, oh, well, it's just the Rams are the only team that's figured out if you put this guy in the slot or you stack him or you motion him, he won't get pressed and it's a free catch every time. And there's 15, 20 guys in the league who could do it and just nobody else does. Like, dude, you want to...
It's not 15 to 20. That's not what I said.
You know, it's like... Or that there's like... more than 2 or 3. It's pretty rare, man. I don't disagree entirely. I didn't have Kupp at 1 or anything.
Right.
But I think I had him at 4, and I think that's a huge discount already for that stuff. But to have him at what, like 7? I don't know.
Yeah, I had him at 3. I mean, the only guys I had him below were the same guys that we all have at 1 and 2.
I just think the reason why I think that, like, specifically playing with an elite quarterback like Kupp was in the league for and maybe this is unfair, but Kupp was in the league for such a long time, like 4 seasons, and he was just never anything close to what he was before Stafford got there, right? And it was just so great when Stafford got there, and that's what I kind of find difficult to balance because, like, in an environment where it was Goff and before his role changed maybe a little bit, like he was whatever, and then he played with this quarterback like Stafford, and there was just a click there that made him go absolutely nuclear, right? And it's like if you were to take him away from Stafford, like Diggs did it with 2 quarters. Like I don't know, maybe this is a player's choice debate where it's just stupid. Like, well, he did it with 2 quarterbacks and Kupp hasn't. Maybe that's an arbitrary thing, but I don't know. I just think that like his situation in LA, he's just a little bit more dependent on it than a guy like AJ Brown who can cook with Ryan Tannehill, and we know this, and turn Jalen Hurts' career around. Like I'm just not sure Kupp is situation proof, and that's why he's at the bottom. And maybe he is. Like maybe he just hasn't gotten the proof. You could trade him away, and he would just be this guy from this point forward. but I just don't think he's situation proof.
Trade Cooper Kupp, and we will see. We're going to trade him to
trade him to
Tampa.
The Commanders next year.
Trade him to Tampa.
Just see what happens.
With Baker,
I don't know. That's just what keeps him at 7. Maybe it's totally unfair. It's just about what I think, and it's okay if you disagree.
No, it's not. You're wrong, Theo. Deal with it. So Devontae was 5. Yeah, we had him at 4. Devontae was at 5. Number 3 is...
They're going to kill us for this one.
They're going to kill you for this one. You put A.J. Brown at 3.
I'm not the only one who had him at 3, man.
Yeah, I guess. You and Matt both put him at 3.
Why are they going to kill us for this one?
A.J. Brown at 3 above Devontae. No, that's not a... They got mad at me. I put A.J. Brown above Devontae. I did a little bracket on TikTok where like you can tilt your head in a specific direction and like fills out a bracket of receivers. Mm-hmm. I did one of those just because, whatever, it's fun. And I did A.J. Brown above Devontae. I guess Brown's not. Awesome. I don't know. He had what? Like 1,500 yards damn near and over 10 touchdowns and did it with a quarterback they never...
I think it's awfully close. But
oh yeah.
I mean, A.J. Brown is amazing after the catch. He was like legitimately unbelievable in contested catch situations. He's a true number 1. He was good in the play. Like, I don't see why he couldn't be number 3.
I don't either, but people just don't like this. People think Adams has to be above him.
I don't think Adams necessarily has to be above him. But if we're going off of, Theo, you've used this logic before that Devontae was more productive with worse quarterback play. And by here's that logic, I would have put
Hurts was worse than Hurts was way worse than Carr before he got A.J. Brown. Yes. Hurts was worse than Carr before A.J. Brown showed up.
Looking at more as A.J.
If we went into the season, who would we have said had better quarterback play, Carr or A.J. Brown?
Who would you have said?
Devontae Adams or A.J. Brown. You'd say Devontae Adams. Like, I think you've got to give A.J. Brown a lot of credit for Hurts being able to develop into the guy he's been. Like, A.J. Brown unlocked a quarterback who had not gotten anywhere near that level before. And same thing with Tannehill.
Yeah.
Like, Tannehill was cut. He was a backup. And then, like, he got to play with A.J. Brown. And all of a sudden, it's like Tannehill is a top 10 quarterback. I think A.J. Brown is so good. I love A.J. Brown. And no one can convince me otherwise. I have him 3 behind Jefferson and Tyreek. But I think that he has, been not the sole reason, but he's been the catalyst of 2 remarkable career renaissance. It's not even a renaissance for Hurts, just breakouts. I think that he is very much responsible for 2 quarterback breakouts, Tannehill and Hurts. He's got the best upper body strength in the league, and everything that brings you, like high pointing the ball. You cannot press him. He is the best in the league versus press. You try to shoot his hands, he knocks him away, no problem. Like, he pump faked Trent McDuffie like in the air in the Super Bowl to make a catch. Like, he acted like he was about to catch it. McDuffie jumped, then he brought his hands away, tracked the ball somewhere else and caught it there. Like, I'm just a huge A.J. Brown fan. Like, as great
A.J.
as
Brown's
Devontae
wonderful.
is.
I love the play where against the Titans, he just like ran over. I don't remember who the corner was that was lined up against him, but he was just backpedaling. So A.J. Brown was like, I'm just going to literally run you over and then catch the touchdown. Like, I don't know.
A.J. Brown wonderful. Could be putting up... His yards per route run this year, like, was a career low since his rookie year, and he had his best season. Like, in Tennessee, he was always this guy. It's just they were always so dependent on Derrick Henry. And then I was like, he's a top guy. He's a top guy in the whole league. And I got cooked for putting him at 6th at one point on a wide receivers list. And then this year, he just went off. So it's like, I've got to keep going higher and higher. And like, eventually he'll...
Here's the stat for you then.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown had his career worst yards per route run of receivers who had like anywhere close to like 100 targets, where do you think he ranked?
In yards per route
run. If receivers were anywhere close to this type of volume.
I would say he's definitely below Tyreek. I would even say maybe even Waddle, just because that offense was like just breaking all the efficiency metrics. Maybe Jefferson, and that's it. I'll say fourth.
Third, he had Waddle by 0.1.
Oh.
So in his worst yards per route run of his career, he's third.
He's ridiculous, nuts, dude. He's a supernova. Nuts, and this is the first year he's gotten the volume, but he's always been like this. And I was trying to scream it from the mountaintops, and I ended up, I think, even being too low on him, because this year was just, yeah, man, it's crazy.
Real good.
He dunked on everybody. He just absolutely dunked on everybody, and so did a lot of guys. Like,
that's all. He's real good. Devontae's real good. Diggs is real good.
Devontae is real good.
Like Devontae is real all good. These guys are so. It's just like we're in this tier one.
I really do believe it's tier 1 through 7, or maybe I even kind of look at it as tier 1 is the top 2 guys, and then tier 2 is 3 through 7.
It might be, but it might.
I could see that,
but it could also fluctuate more this year. We'll see how Garrett Wilson continues to evolve. Who knows? AJ Brown could be even better this year. But the top 2 guys on this list are obviously the last 2 left, Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. The only difference being Matt, Theo, and Daniel, our producer, all had Tyreek Hill at 1 and Jefferson at 2. I put Jefferson at 1. I was I'm
surprised you're in the minority with Justin Jefferson at number 1, to be completely honest.
I thought Theo would be in the minority there. So,
dude, Jefferson was special this year, and he nabbed Offensive Player of the Year from Tyreek. But like, I think the overall like opinion of these 2 guys has moved to like, and then that proves Jefferson is better. And then now we know Jefferson is just the better one. Tyreek's up there, but like, dude, I don't think it's like that at all. Now, I think Jefferson at 1 is a perfectly fine take, man.
Yeah,
because he really was special. I don't think
having Tyreek at 1 is a bad.
But like, dude, Tyreek Hill was just totally unbelievable. I mean, you just throw it up anywhere and he can just go and find the ball immediately and go and get it. And he's the fastest player in the NFL. He's got the most yards per route run of any player by such an unbelievable number. I don't know how else to do it. And this is
it has to be the best throwing ever. To him. It has to be it has to be the best yards per route run like in the history of the league. It's
with backup quarterbacks throwing to him half the year. And the big knock on Tua, no matter what you think of him as a quarterback, the big knock on Tua is that he can't get the ball down the field far enough. You would consider Tyreek a downfield receiver, like a deep threat type guy. So on paper, it shouldn't line up like that, and it just does, man. And I think if Tua had stayed healthy, I think he would have gotten a 2K. I really do.
He might have. I remember we were at a point in the year where we were like, he's already at 1,100 yards. What the like?
Yeah, he was. I mean, it was something, man.
Yeah. So I don't hate having Tyreek at 1. Absolutely. For me, watching Jefferson and the way he literally carried the Vikings offense this year, it was like MVP level stuff from Jefferson. There's the catch against the Bills. And he was just making plays like
that.
This.
Was a nuts.
It was just ridiculous.
That was crazy. That whole game was crazy.
Yeah, because Diggs did the same thing.
Man. That entire performance against the Bills was crazy. That's really all you need for the Jefferson argument is like, that's cool, but game. You are like 10 of the greatest catches you'll ever see in your life, and here they all are in one game, and it was like the hardest opponent the Vikings played all year, and they just completely carried them. And, yeah, man, he's the only reason. He's on pace to be the GOAT.
It's like, why were they? No, really. I mean, the Vikings were 13-4 last year, won the division with a negative point differential If they don't have Justin Jefferson, that team stinks. That team is terrible. And like, sure, you could be like, well, if they don't have their best players, sure.
Yeah.
Bro. How the Eagles lose AJ Brown, they're not going to be that. But the Vikings needed Justin Jefferson. Every game, every play, and they needed him to be the best player in the world at all times. And he was.
I would definitely name him most valuable receiver last year. That's absolutely true. And I mean, 1,400, 1,600, 18 yards is a crazy start. He's like 200 yards away from being the Bears all-time receiving leader. And he's been in the league 4 years, and he's about to have more yards than any receiver than a franchise that has had like 100 years of history.
That franchise had a few good receivers, I believe.
It's not as many as you'd hope, honestly. But yeah, man, he's I'm talking about the Bears. Like, he's about to pass anybody in Bears history, which is a little just NFC.
Right. I thought you meant the Vikings. I was like, that's a nuts stat then, because the Vikings have had some dudes. Okay, that makes more sense.
Oh yeah, no, not Chris Carter and Randy Moss. And
that's you cut out. That's kind of a shot at the Bears. I'm not gonna lie, man.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's NFC North dialogue that's happening. Like, the Bears are catching a stray. It's just crazy that in his 4th season, he's about to be ahead of anyone's franchise career leader.
I'm gonna start saying that about all sorts of receivers now. You could say that about. That would be a great tweet. How many receivers have more than any receiver in Bears history? How many?
I'm guessing it's not too
that are
many. So active? Jefferson is at. Who has more than 5,000 career receiving yards, basically?
Mike Evans.
Dude, I think that number probably is like 15.
Yeah.
Who's active?
Yeah, that number's probably like, that probably is like 20. It's probably like 50.
How many does Randall Cobb have?
Diggs is probably up there.
Randall Cobb has got to be above.
Diggs has almost 9,000 career. Tyreek has almost 9,000 career. AJ Brown is almost at 5,000. He's going to get it this year. Let's see who else. Mike Evans for sure.
It's a lot of them.
That would be a really funny thing to always be tweeting out, like every time a receiver passes that threshold.
Chris Godwin's on the list.
No offense,
oh my god.
Oh yeah, Randall Cobb's got 7.5.
DJ Moore.
Anyway.
He's way clear.
DJ Moore,
I like Tyreek because, here's the thing about Jefferson. I watch Jefferson. I'm like, oh, he's probably number one. And then I'll watch something like Tyreek, his catch that versus Buffalo in the playoffs in the 13-second game where he like caught a drag and just burned everybody.
Yeah.
And then I'll think to myself, like, Jefferson couldn't do that. Like, there's just things that he unlocks with his speed that no one else since Randy Moss has been able to unlock. And it's not like it's just the skill set without the stats being there too. Because again, on a per route basis, he's way more efficient than everybody else. And then counting stats, he's always up there as well. So it's not like, I'm trying to overcome this massive statistical deficit. He's one of the most efficient receivers in league history. And I just think like the type of ceiling he gives in offense, and it doesn't matter the quarterback, even in a quarterback like Tua, where it's like, no matter what you think about Tua, like that guy does not have the arm to push it way down the field. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Like Tyreek can make it happen. He's just a cheat code to me. Jefferson is also a cheat code, but I think that Tyreek is just unlocks something just a little bit different that no one else on this list quite does. So
yeah, I mean, you guys won. Tyreek is at 1, so you're the winners. I lose.
Thank you, Dolphins fan. We got the Dolphins fan producer coming in with the clutch vote.
I've won the Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill war exclusively because of this shout out.
Yes.
Well,
and if there was a Panthers battle, I probably would have had some bias going there, but I don't know if we can quite say that about Terrace Marshall.
No one voted for Christian Watson, unfortunately. But anyway.
No one did. But hey, I might have lost, but you all can win when you trust the best in eyewear business with your summer fit this year. Oakley's not only the best looking eyewear on the market, but also the highest quality get on over to Oakley.com and snag a pair today. That's Oakley.com. And thank you, Oakley, for sponsoring the Mailbag segment while we get you all more involved in the show here at Stay Hot. We're going to be answering some of your questions on Twitter. And if you want to be involved in this in the future, make sure you follow us at Stay Hot Pod on Twitter. The first question comes from King on Twitter. Would you move off Kyler if the Cardinals landed the first overall pick next year? I think yes. Yes.
I mean, it takes two to tango. I would try. I don't know if it would happen right now.
Man, I honestly, I really think Caleb Williams is so good. I'd have to see how his senior season goes. We're a little bit far out.
Right.
But I do think there's some limitations with the player that Kyler is, even though I kind of regret leaving him off my top 10 list. I think I should have had him at 10 instead of Geno. But yeah, I think that I think I would as it stands right now. But we'll see.
Caleb is cheaper for years. He's a bit bigger, and if he offers all of that, if he's really that special as a prospect, you should look to move on from Kyler and take potentially the better player for cheaper and still get the resources from a Kyler pick. Yes, I would be extremely interested in doing that. Now, maybe no one would bite on Kyler. Maybe everyone would say his contract, to the type of player he is, to how hurt he's been over the course of his career. We're not offering you a bunch of firsts for this type of dude. And then maybe you'd be better off saying, well, I'll take 5 first-round picks for Caleb and I'll stick with Kyler and just have more resources than everybody else going forward. I think the Cardinals could be in if they get in the number 1 overall pick, you're in a good position. Caleb Williams is the type of dude, it seems or even Drake May. I don't know so much about Drake May, but Caleb at least seems like the type of dude that if you're in the position to draft him, you're in a good spot going forward. And whether that be trading away Kyler or keeping Kyler and trading away the pick, you're in a good spot. But I would definitely explore trading Kyler. I don't know what the market for Kyler
100%.
is right now, but I would explore it 100%. Absolutely.
Right. Next question is from, I don't know if this is Luss or Loose, but again on Twitter, who will have a better second year? I guess this one's for you, Theo, since you've been watching him. Kayvon Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson, or Trayvon Walker?
I haven't done my deep dive into Hutchinson yet. I've looked at Thibodeau and I've looked at Walker. I think go ahead.
All I'm saying is, like I said, I've been watching a little bit of Lions. I'm not sure I'm as low on Hutchinson as maybe I was at one time. Dude, he's got a bag, man.
Hutchinson really came along towards the end of the year and really started to change my opinion on him. And I'm excited to get deeper into his film because I think, especially at the beginning of the year, he was getting a bit overrated, but I think he really started to get more refined as time went on. And he's at the top of all the statistical boards. So I'm going to leave him out of it for at least for me for right now, because I've looked at Trayvon and Kayvon. For next year, I think I would take Thibodeau. For next year.
Okay. I think I'm not saying that Hutchinson's my call. I think he looks really good.
Yes. I will look into him and I will do a video on him and then I will have my final answer on this. But right now, I think I just really like where Kayvon is at with his polish and the way he was using his hands and the way that and the moves that he developed as opposed to Walker. I think eventually Walker could surpass Kayvon. Like if you look at a Khalil Mack and say who looks closer to this, moving around, it's Trayvon. Kayvon is a bit smaller. I don't think he's quite as fluid as a guy like Trayvon Walker. But I think right now, Thibodeau seems to be more ahead of schedule. So I think for now, I'm going to put Thibodeau above him.
I think that's fair. Trayvon was a big project. As a pass rusher, at least. So that's understandable. The last question is from FCK on Twitter. Which NFL team would you least want to be a GM of?
Probably.
General manager means that you have to work with ownership. I think ownership is what you see as a long-term decider of how good a team is, even if you get a good general manager. So I'd be inclined to say a team that's been consistently not great and struggles with ownership.
That sounds like the Cardinals to me. Obviously, Washington.
The problem
is
that the Cardinals
one.
have I would really want Marvin Harrison Jr. possibly and Caleb Williams. So if it wasn't for that, I'd probably be saying them.
Yeah.
What about?
I just think
Denver, Washington. Maybe?
Denver just got new owners. Washington just got a new owner as well, and maybe it's Washington until proven otherwise. But Dan Snyder was just an obvious question here. As far as who's in the worst position going forward, could it be the Raiders?
I wouldn't much want to be the Raiders GM.
Brady's a partial owner.
Mark Davis is, I believe, one of the poorest owners, and I think that's still true, even though I think the move to Vegas did some good things for them. They don't have a franchise quarterback. They might just be good enough to miss out on the May Caleb Williams quarterback tier. They seem very dysfunctional. Devontae doesn't want to be there anymore and says that he has a fundamental. If you were to drop me in there right now, the Raiders GM is in big trouble, and I don't see there's any way he does not get fired. I will say that. I would not want to be the Raiders GM right now. Now, if they fired him and hired me, things would change. But right,
he said me personally.
Honestly, I can't even think of an answer because there's. I
can't even think of an answer because
I'm a team I couldn't fix and win a Super Bowl with in 2 or 3 years. So
I'll say the Raiders right now. I think it looks pretty rough for their GM right now. I think they're pretty much fucked because they have their options right.
The Saints. There you go. I wouldn't, and for multiple reasons. Number one, I don't like them. I'm a Panthers fan, but number two, you're forced into restructuring Alvin Kamara until he's 45 years old. I would pass on that. So I'd say the Saints. I'm going to be a hater.
That's fair.
Respect.
I mean,
I'll say
they're probably the most mid team in the league right now in terms of could be not terrible, but doesn't have the championship ceiling and being stuck in that kind of mediocrity with those contracts. Who knows? I could see that.
Yeah, I guess that would be my fear with them is being stuck. Obviously, I think they have a good chance to win the division this year, but that's not saying as much as it usually is, right?
Yeah, especially for a team like the Saints, who's it's not like they're perennial losers. The Drew Brees era was not long ago where it's division win is this big thing.
Right.
It would be for the Lions or something.
Yeah. So I'd say them.
Fair enough. Well, I think that pretty much wraps things up for us. It's been a pleasure, boys. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. We'll be back with another position ranking. Let us know what else you want us to talk about. But until next time, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you on the Flippity Flop.